Perfect. All right, so to all our panelists, we're going to first start off. I want to thank everyone for coming and joining us. Thank you all, those that I'm meeting for the first time and those that I've known for a little while. I appreciate you taking this opportunity to kind of share with us your experience and your journey as title holders. And to start, we want to make sure that we're all respectful. So toward the end, we'll have questions from our participants that are listening to the first part. And so we want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to be heard. So if you can, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat or you can save them to the end and you can ask them directly if you'd like. So if we can start and go around and introduce ourselves, I'm gonna kind of just go in order on how you show up on my screen. So Carissa, you would be first, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Carissa, pronoun she, her. I was Northwest Handler 2017 and International Trainer 2017. And I'm now on the executive board producing the International Puppy and Trainer Contest. From the Seattle area originally, was in Seattle Girls of Leather, CPAW, VanPaw, PDX Paw, all the paws. And now calling the Philadelphia area home.
Thank you for joining us. It's Carla.
I am Washington State Ms. Leather 2017. My name's Carla, pronouns she, her. And I've been around in the Seattle community for what feels like absolute forever.
Sir Kira.
My name is Kira Morgan. My pronouns are she, her, they, them, whatever floats your boat that particular day. I'm International Ms. Olympus Leather 2011. Not sure anymore. It's been a really long time. Was there one more question? I can't remember the last one.
That's a good start.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Brian Bolt-Downer.
Hey everyone, yeah, so Brian or Bolt, pronouns he, him. I spent most of my adult and really almost all my leather life in the Midwest in Cincinnati, where I had my title that I went to IML in 2015. I say it's been a little bit. I think it was 2015. I'm pretty sure it's 2015. Made podium that year and kind of took that springboard to like get involved in a lot of other things. I very recently moved out to the West Coast to Seattle, and I'm enjoying some time of just being a member of the community rather than being hyper involved like I used to be. But still a big believer in the whole title experience.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Boy D.
Hello, I'm Slave Boy D, or just Boy D. I was Washington State Ms. Leather 2010, and Northwest Slave 2017. My pronouns are they, them. Been around the community since 91-ish, sort of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan.
Hi, everyone. Ryan or Polish, depending on how you know me. International Mr. Bootblack 2017. Got into the title scene as a sash widow back in 2015 with my then partner. I've been around for a few minutes, mostly in the title circuit. And since 2017, been involved in a handful of orgs and boards and so on. But yeah, doing a Bootblack thing a few years ago was my claim to fame. Great to see everyone.
Thank you. And Colin.
Hi, my name is Colin. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the Intergalactic Power Bottom 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022 / still reigning 10-year edition. And fuck, what else was I supposed to say? that's it. Those are my titles. That's my base. Yeah, I hit the point. Oh yeah, I'm a harm reduction. Sorry, Yolanda, I'm not done. I'm a harm reduction Care Bear, and I do direct service, and I am a leather boy with a taller dog than me, and yeah, I like to have a good time, and I'm also in like singing and stuff. Yeah. And I'm a part of, I'm a resident, I'm a resident Bootblack at the Portland Eagle. That was my other point that I was supposed to hit. Sorry, you all. Yeah, and I Bootblack there for their Party Lust, which is Friday. It's their second Friday now. And their party for No FOMO. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And Lamalani?
Hi, I'm Lamalani. I served as Washington State Ms. Leather 2008 and then went on to serve as International Ms. Leather 2009. Grew up in Seattle and spent a lot of my leather life there, and then currently living in Los Angeles. I moved to California in 2012, something like that. Has everyone introduced themselves? Excellent. All right. So I am going to start with an activity that has us thinking about title holding, including our own experiences, if you have it, and also beyond our experiences, if that's what you've had. So I'm going to create a list in the chat using your input, and that is, when thinking about title holding, what have you heard or what do you know about title holding? So you don't necessarily have to believe what you've heard or what you put in the list, but when you think about title holding or title holder, what comes to mind? So let's go ahead and create a list via the chat and go ahead and throw things in there to everyone. And while you do that, and well, first of all, does anyone have any questions about what kind of list we're creating? All right, so while you do that, I will talk about the type of titles. And it sounds like there's a lot of experience here with title holding, but this is more for people that, and also like maybe elaborate more than just a word, but you can, say a couple things. Cool. So for those that might be watching the recording or joining us today that don't know about the titles, I'll talk a little bit about the type of titles, and anyone can feel free to join in, and also a little bit about the history as I know it. So titles starting from more local to grander, we have city or club titles, and that could be like a bar title, serving the city, like Mr. Cincinnati mentioned, and maybe a club. And then we have a state title, which is represented and put on by this WSLO. For example, they sponsor the Washington State Mr. Ms. Mix and Washington State Bootblack titles. And then there are regional titles, national titles, and the regional titles can serve like the West Coast or Midwest. The national can serve a country, and then international or world. So I'm not going to elaborate too much because I want to kind of follow up within the conversation. So the history as I know it, and feel free to jump in, is that title holders kind of came out of bar contests, prior to the 70s. And these bar contests were like, Mr. Bare Chest representing the bar. And it was kind of like a typically in the gay men's community. And often we're just kind of voted on as a representative of a bar, and that was it. And when HIV/AIDS came, these title holders were kind of stepped up as community ambassadors and fundraisers, and kind of morphed into title holding as we know it and as we'll talk about. So I'd love to open up to other panelists who want to contribute to the history and what I just mentioned. All right. So I just want to give a few more seconds if anyone wants to add to the list. If anyone wants to add, please raise your hand. Okay, so I am going to read this list. I might ask a couple questions, but title holding. So when we think about what we've heard or what we've experienced about title holding, we have travel, community care, responsibility, obligation, social capital, educating, role model, servant leader for the community or sponsor, a buttload of fun. Take a guess at who wrote that one. Making space, ambassadors to the kink, fetish, leather communities, networking, public figure, punk as fuck, sounds like shit. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but education, community service, fundraising, representation, traveling to represent a title, meeting new people in the community, providing visibility for the community or representing, answering questions from people, popularity contest, fashion, superheroes, bridge between our community and the general public. Squirt, good way to put, oh wait, never mind. Okay. Lifetime service, a lifetime title, service, represent, fundraising, expensive, community welcome mat. Anything else I want to add? All right. So one thing I hear a lot, but wasn't on the list, is that you'll lose your relationship. So that might be something that people consider. So there's a lot of things in there. And I'll put the target on your back. Yeah. So the reason why I made this list is because there's a lot of expectations on what a title holder is and what they're supposed to do. And it's huge. And nobody can do all of this and still maintain their own sense of self. So it's like actual people too. So when you think about title holding, think about these expectations that the community thinks about title holders and what you should do. And I just want to share a little bit of story that I heard when I was a title holder. Is there was a master slave couple who happened to be life partners as well and shared finances. And they came up to me and said, after I used this exercise in a class, and they said, we refinanced our house in order to pay for travel. And granted, there are two of them because they're master slave and go together. But, you know, they went severely into debt and went beyond their means in order to do this because of that expectation of travel and going everywhere. So that's one thing to remember, is take care of yourself and to go beyond your means. And a lot of people try to fulfill these huge expectations of title holders and really compromise themselves in that process. So I like opening with this to think about what people think about what a title holder should be. And Scout, I want to mention first is a lot of organizations will have a contract that a title holder signs, and there are different requirements based on the levels that I had mentioned prior, and that will probably be talked about later. But for example, I wanted to call out a contract for probably one of the most famous contests, the International Mr. Leather, International Mr. Bootblack contest. And Scout, can you share with us what the requirements are in the contract?
Sure. Hi, I'm Scout. I'm not actually on the panel. I'm happy to answer the question though. Literally, I was told the only requirement was come back and step down.
That's
you
right.
You can do whatever you want.
That's right. And that's what I love, is that you can make that title yours. And the only requirement that the organization requires is that you come back for your step down. And given that you can do what you want with it, but think about the community expectations, what you want to do with that title and how you want to be remembered would be my advice. So would a IMBB want to be remembered as the one that didn't go to their IMSBB's contest? Probably not. So think about those expectations, how you'd want to conduct your title year and how you want to be remembered would be my advice with that. So I have a 2-year-old miniature human that I have to feed and put to bed. So I'm actually going to step off, and before I end this exercise, I want to just open up the floor to any questions or comments before I leave for the evening.
I have a question. How much of this social expectation do people think that they should engage with as a title holder? Like, do you think it's more important to show up at an event because you're expected to be there? Or do you think it's more important to show up at an event because you actually support the values of the event?
I think that's a really good question. And I think about also what value can I bring to the event? So I think, there was a couple comments of social capital, and some people think that just showing up will bolster the event, and that's all you need to do. I like to think of my attending event as what value can I bring to the event, and how can I forward the community. So I like to think about, the values of the event, the community it serves, and how I can forward the, and kind of add value to, the entire community. So anyone else want to add to that?
I can add to that. When I was a title holder, I was very distinctly one of the only people of color. Just showing up was the thing for me. Just standing there in front of all those lovely white people and being me was the power.
I feel really similarly to Sakura, and not only just because of my skin color, but also because of the fact that like I'm also disabled too, and I use a wheelchair to navigate public spaces, and so it's always like this really weird thing for me because I hate drawing attention to myself, but also like when I use a wheelchair, people are always noticing me and always looking at me for like whatever reason. And like when I was a kid and I first realized like what being like black meant and black was, and like navigating that, I kind of like I learned how to like be powerful in that first, and take up space in that way first. And then when I was like discovering and figuring out how to do that as a disabled person too, also like just being in the room and being visible and like being present, but also like fuck up their traffic patterns. They can move around you, and shit like that, and like not apologizing anymore for like being in people's way and taking up space and for my body like just existing. I'm also similarly for being like that too, but yeah.
Yeah, and representation, while like that's definitely a big part of showing up to events for me as well. I also choose my events based on joy. If I'm going to go to an event and have fun and have a good time, I think that's one of the best things I can do to represent my title, is that, oh, I saw that person and they were representing that title and they were having a blast. That sounds like something I want to do. That sounds great, and it's to Lamalani's point of adding something, adding value. But if I'm enthusiastic and I agree with the mission of the event and I go there and have a good time, that's a pretty good endorsement as far as, why to attend a particular event.
What I was wondering is, for me, part of it, both as Washington State and as Northwest Slave, was during my title year, there was a huge expectation about where I would go and where I would represent and my behavior and all those kind of things. So I think that's important to know. Someone who's considering running is, what are the expectations during your title year of what you will attend, when you will attend, how you will represent yourself, how you'll dress, all those things are really important during that time. The thing that's interesting for me is partly maybe what Colin and Sakura were saying about um, for Native people, we don't always stand up and be, you know, the thing. We look to our elders, we look to other people in the community for wisdom and knowledge. And so to stand up and say, well, I have knowledge of this or an expertise, it's challenging as a Native person because we don't look at the world in that same way as the dominant paradigm does. And so I think that's something to consider as a Native person, maybe other people of color. I'm not certain. I don't want to speak for everyone. But certainly for me, that was a pretty big challenge to say. I was told the reason I ran for Washington State was because 3 elders in the community said to me, I think you should run. So I brought forth their voice and their wisdom in terms of the work that I did. I don't know that that was always recognized because it wasn't sort of the way that the dominant paradigm does things. Of it's all about me, and then we'll talk about you. Native people don't present in that way. It's all about you, and let me share something about me.
Thank you. Do anyone
Thank
else
you.
want to share on that? Or we can move to the next question. Okay, perfect. So one of the questions that has come up along this along the line of being a title holder is what made you decide, with all of the expectations and all of what this means, what made you decide to do this? Like, I mean, Boydie just explained like their reasoning, but anyone else, why do this?
Can I
Go
So
ahead.
I'll jump in
Go
here.
ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Sakura.
Oh, I ran because my producer said it wasn't my year to win. Flat out.
Okay. Ryan.
So similar kind of energy, but mine was around, my decision really hinged on, and kind of rolling off of the last kind of discussion point as well, I didn't really look at the expectations of the title so much as I wanted to think about it from a perspective of access. I'd watched my partner go through multiple title experiences. I had friends that had gone through title experiences, and I saw them experiencing kink and fetish and BDSM in a way that I hadn't seen before, and I wanted access to that. And I wanted to be able to experience that and to see it and to be around it, and then to find ways to connect with others in that same way. And so I think it might have been a panel that Lamalani was on, now that I think about it, but my partner was on a panel and was like, I need to do that. And then I saw him run for IMBB and handled him through the weekend and was like, oh, this was a shit show, but it was amazing. And I want to do this, and I want to help figure out how to make it more interesting and better and be a part of things. And so, mine was a very kind of insular focus, and I wanted to participate for the sake of participating and for kind of being in that ecosystem rather than kind of projecting what the year or its expectations might hold.
Colin?
I think for me, what made me run was like when I heard of this title, because there's only been one other person to the Intergalactic Power Bottom other than me. Is that it was a newer title. I've always been interested in like leather and kink, and I like read about like title holders as like a baby gay growing up in the Midwest, and I was like, 16-year-old me was like, I want to do this because it's like I'm a superhero, but also like 33-year-old me was like, because I can. And but still with like, I'm like, we're kind of like, I don't know. I liked what I was like, I like it, I like exclusivity in wearing a patch. To some degree, if I can be real. And also because I hate myself, and also because I know they would have a lot of fun. And like, what made me run is I like looked at my requirements after reading the definition and being like, I need to run for that. Was being like, oh, this is so fucking easy because one, my job, two, I'm crushing it because I'm going out in general anyway. And three, like, I'm already doing this. Like, I'm already doing this and like would be doing it whether or not I had a title, just not because I had a title, but because it's like a Monday. And so, but having the patch is really fun, like wearing it around town, like seeing people's reactions to it, and that's what made me really want to do it, is because I'm like, I know that people's reactions are going to be like really funny. And also like it's a newer title, and so I wasn't necessarily inheriting like sometimes all this like other shit that comes with people's like personal feelings or about other people that are not necessarily in community anymore, or like whatever. And so I felt like I could also, since it's like still a newer title, just like make it my own. And just I look like, who doesn't love to go out to look and get their photo taken? And then I was already doing workshops, so whatever. But like, yeah, I really was just like, what made me think that I could do it was because I was like, one, popular, two, I'm already doing this, and three, like I love taking a photo. And then so that's kind of like an oversimplification, but I was like, oh, these are my fundamental core values, and this is who I am as a person. I'm not going to shy away from that. And people can be like, take it or leave it. And I'm really grateful that people chose to take it.
We definitely chose to take it. Carissa.
Yeah. So one phrase that Colin just said that really stuck with me was, I was already doing it. And for me, my first title was Northwest Handler. And I was already handling puppies. I was already running moshes. I was already meeting new people and bringing them in. And for me, it was fun, and it brought a lot of joy. And partially, like Dee said, people in my community approached me and said, hey, you should do this. And also representation, because there weren't a lot of women visually in the community, or just in the community period. And so being, that for my community, and knowing that I could spread that visibility, and that I could just pet a lot of puppies and have such a good fun time. And and I love a pageant, and I love to win. And I love sparkles and tiaras and patches, and what better opportunity? Gosh, I love a pageant. So, there's that.
Anyone else want to share their why?
I think that a lot of the reason that I did it was I felt it was almost an obligation to do something. I was already, like they said, doing things in the community, but I came out into the community and started doing things when I was 22 years old. And it wasn't until I think I was, 44, 45, and I decided to run this title. And I thought, I can do this. I can do a good job at this. I have a lot of experience, and I love to teach. And it just seemed like it was going to be a whole lot of fun. And it was. I loved every minute of the title year and all of the events that I did. And I don't know. I just thought it's about time for me to step in and do this.
Yeah. Ryan or Ryan? You share?
It's like mine was actually, Ryan really kind of voiced a lot of similar sort of things. Is like there was a level of like coming into it, a lot of people that I'd gotten to know. Basically, I'd gotten out of a long-term relationship that was not kinky, and the friends that I made outside of that were part of not only the leather community, but sort of the leather contest circuit. So that sort of, I started going along to these and just meeting a lot of really cool people that were really open to things and into education and into insight, and just to see all that energy, it was really kind of like wanting to get into it. And to echo Carissa, it's like, I do love a pageant, you know, it's so that piece of it, to say it's like, it kind of became a big challenge to sort of bite off. But I also will fully acknowledge it's like, it was a different game then, and I'm glad it has evolved now.
Okay, how would, okay, I want a second question. How do you think it's changed since, I mean, for these new people that are considering having a title today in 2023, how do you think it's changed from when you ran for your title?
It's sort of, not that I've been around this long, but as Lamalani was saying earlier, it's like a lot of the early titles, especially in the men's circuit, were very much like, okay, who's going to look good on a poster or up on a box. That was their standard for what this was going to be. And I feel like the hot button issue my year was prep, which now seems like the most basic, non-controversial things, but this was the time where it's like, called a party drug. So like that was scandal time. But seeing kind of now as people go, and say it's like, okay, you need to have an informed position on inclusion of women in the community, inclusion of trans people in the community, inclusion of people of color, on down the list. You cannot just show up without having just thinking you're going to skate through on charm. It's like, you do need to do your own work. You need to try to be part of the community that you're actually trying to represent, and not just your own very much same as you segment of that community. So I'm seeing a lot of that kind of reflected in things. I see a lot more. I was one of the IML judges last year, and one judge, I'm hoping this isn't speaking too much out of class, but like one of the judges asked every contestant like what their views on gun control were. And no one was expecting to answer that question. But this is also like almost immediately, like a week after a notable school shooting, which of course I don't remember which one because there are too many. So like that kind of aspect of things. And I've noticed that in the top 20 of IML selections, you're having a lot more representation in of different skin colors, different body types. I know actually I had more trans contestants in the top 20. It's just seeing that kind of like, I mean, because in a certain sense, like it's easy to run for IML. There can be anything from a bar title up to like a big regional thing. So getting into the doors, but getting to top 20 is sort of a trickier thing to hit. And that's where I think you start to see, okay, what are the standards by which these contestants are really being observed? So I see a lot of stuff like that. I just think that you don't get to again, just show up in pretty leather and think you're going to do okay. Or at least like, I don't know, you might do fine for a little bit, and then someone's going to hit you with a question that's going to like absolutely knock you on your ass.
Thank you. Go ahead, Lady.
So I don't know who's an older an older title holder than I am in this group. So I'll just put it out there, I guess. I think in 2010 when I ran, there were a few of us who felt like that women were able to represent and be in the community and be strong, powerful educators, teachers, presenters, sexy, all the things. However, it was sort of like Like when I was in boot camp, my company commander said, you know, you got to be twice as good to be thought of as half as equal. And I really felt that during running for the title. It was like I felt like that the women had to be twice as good to be thought of as half as equal. And you had to be absolutely good at everything. You had to be fantastic in your fantasy. You had to be fantastic looking. You had to have all the leather. And thank God my sash husband is this gorgeous Black man who has leather up to the yin yang. And, you know, and all that. So my sort of, you know, social worker style leather, you know, jeans and a leather vest and all that. I had to pump it up some to kind of get to his, but there wasn't any way. I felt like the other thing was that truly it was really important to me that I brought in people to represent across the board in terms of older people, trans people, men who are all part of either my fantasy or helping me to prepare or those kind of things. Because I felt that it was important for us to come together as a community. And we really hadn't done a hell of a lot of that aside from coming together over HIV and AIDS. And we did a hell of a lot of that. And the men led us in to the community, so to speak, at that time. In 1992, man, I walked into the cuff and with two Leathermen and was looked at like, what are you doing here? What's going on? Why are you here? Kind of thing. Today, that's changed dramatically, and it's a beautiful thing. What I still struggle with, and I think that it's coming along, is that people of color, both the onyx pearls and onyx, and now House of Iron with Native people, and you know that people of color are stepping up and saying, you know what, you're going to recognize us because we're here and we're doing this shit. We're doing it really well. So that wasn't happening when I ran. So I'm grateful to see that that has changed.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to share their thoughts on how it's changed?
I kind of have something that'll lead us in a little bit of a different direction. But one thing that's changed is the prep, like Brian was saying, and kind of a team like Boy touched on. You need, for the larger titles, you need a team. You need a contestant handler. You need somebody helping do mock interviews. You need outfits to be planned, especially if you're femme. But, you know, more and more contests are having multi-day, multi-outfit events. You need, you know, just people to be your gophers, people to, you know, bring you food because there is no space between interview and this and this and this. So I would say that the intensity of contests has increased with, I don't see any slowdown of that. But, you know, to successfully win, especially at the international level, you need a team, a contestant team. So.
I think one other thing that I'll just tag on to that, and I want to be clear, I'm not being contradictory in the slightest, but as someone who's looking to participate in a contest, you know, kind of talking to the people who are interested in this or curious about it, if you're seeing quality of life changes in those contest experiences, speak up about that. You know, you need a team, and they are grueling experiences in a lot of ways, but they should be grueling in ways that are meaningful and rewarding, and that contribute to the experience of that contest, not grueling for grueling's sake. And so I think that I can give a particularly like very specific example of that. With IMBB, we used to, as a title, work a Bootblack stand for upwards of 20 hours and more across the weekend, which no other title experience goes through in that same kind of way. And so that's just physically demanding and exclusionary to people who might not necessarily have, you know, physical ability and so on. And we've worked to reorient the contest over the last 5 years so that it's now down to, I think, 12 or 16 hours, which is still a lot, but it's also scheduled differently so that people have time for breaks and they can go eat before the end of the weekend and so on. And they get to experience the rest of IMO weekend as well. So I fully agree. You need a team, and these things are a lot to experience, but they should be a lot to experience in rewarding ways.
I have a final thought if that's okay, Yolanda.
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
I think social media has changed it a lot. Like,
Oh, yeah.
holy shit. Like, I'm like older gen social media, which is like not even anything compared to like all the beautiful people that came before me that were just taking photos on actual film and having to go and develop them and shit and had Polaroid and shit. Like, holy shit, like social media, like literally just like we have these weird devices and like it's way more branded. That's what I want to say. Like, if you win a title now, it's kind of like the understanding according to your contract, depending on what your contract is and how you want to make your title year. And also, like, I'm disabled and Black and like a Nelly faggot, and I'm like, I'm not supposed to be alive right now. And so like vanity is an act of revolution, and like going out and taking my photo and like documenting my histories in real life with people like is an act of revolution. And so I'm gonna fucking look amazing and take photos with people, I guess. Damn it. But you don't have to, because you can do whatever the fuck you want to. It's your year. And the way that social media puts pressure on people sometimes, depending on who you are. If you have more followers and have people who support you, both not just local, again, your team locally, but also like people across the country or the world or whatever, who are gonna like buy your pins if you decide to go the pin route. If you need, who are gonna donate to your travel fund, if you like, regardless of whatever, because that shit's expensive, and I'm not refinancing my home for that shit. I want to be very clear about that. Those are all ways that you can engage people in your personal journey. And so I would say that it feels like really, really like a fishbowl. Ooh, excuse me, like a fishbowl in a lot of ways, because for that year, people want to know who you are. They want to know what you're about. They want to see photos of you looking beautiful in a bar somewhere, a dungeon, or possibly like yes, presence and proof of involvement. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. And also that comes with the cost of like your personal life sometimes, and people viewing you as more like a monolith. So also remembering that you're not a monolith and that you contain multitudes. So yeah, but social media ruined it all. It didn't ruin it all. It's a lot of fun. I love turning a look and taking photos of people's boots who are sexy in my chair for me. But also I'm like, this is fun, and what if I didn't take as many photos?
Definitely social media has impacted the whole idea of title, because of all the visual and the spreads and how you communicate and how other people communicate and what people say on social media. So question along the lines of team and support, how should you or could you expect who you're representing as a title, the organization, to support you in that title run? Or in your title year?
I'm just going to throw it out there that if they have an expectation of travel, there should be a travel fund, financial accessibility. If you're going to tell somebody that anybody can compete, then you better be ready to support anybody who wins, regardless of financial ability.
I've seen a lot of variation in this and different title systems all over. Some have a robust enough budget to really kind of do all that up, and others are just sort of like, they want to have a local representative, and I know when I took over the Cincinnati leather title, we had $50 in the bank to do everything. And so it's like, we really couldn't do much. And it was also a couple years before we actually sent someone to IML. So we worked on building that up, but it's really not consistent. I think a lot of people are surprised when they come in expecting more support than they get, even though I see a lot of producers also try to be clear about like, okay, there isn't a prize basket kind of thing, depending on the contest.
I was a producer for National Capital Leather Pride, which was a bar title that we ran for 7-8 years on absolutely zero funding. Having said that, our goal wasn't to get these people all over everywhere. Our goal was to give people who were not in the traditional title circuit the ability to meet other people who were involved in leather in other cities, so that we could connect them up and get them moving, et cetera, et cetera. Travel has evolved over the last 20 years a lot. Like the spreading of like going from this city to this city to this city was not something that was as big 25 years ago. It just wasn't. I had like maybe 4 or 5 trips a year on my personal dime because I wanted to go to a party. That was about it. Now people are looking at 5-6 events a month. And I'm like, oh, my age, I'm like, I'm out. I'm completely out. That's a lot of work and a lot of energy.
So I want to say this in a good way. It's a challenge. So forgive me if it doesn't sound as maybe positive as you would like. My sash husband and I felt we didn't have the support, and I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about there was an expectation of doing fundraising and people on the board not even showing up to the fundraiser, or not having a structure, or saying like that I wanted the money that I raised to go to creating an elders fund. And partnering with Sage was a way to do that. But because it wasn't specifically leather, I get a lot of shit about that from the organizers, not from the community. The community was very grateful that I had done something that no one else had done at that time. Not that I am all that in a bag of chips, but to me, I really think it's important that the producers, yeah, money would be great. Don't get me wrong. Especially when we ran for International Master Slave. Oh my God, we spent so much traveling and everything was crazy. But to me, it is the respect. It is, if you ask me to do something as a title holder, if I come to you and say, I need your support, I need you to be there to help with the event, or I need you to ask other people to come and help with this event because it's going to be pretty big, or can you help me find a space, or those kind of things, that it's not looked at as incompetence, as it's looked at as you are supporting me as your title holder. I need you to be the foundation for the work that I want to accomplish during this title year. To the point that my sash husband no longer will participate in anything to do with our title year. And it's been a long time. And I love him dearly. He's one of the smartest men I know. He's also kind and gentle and generous with his, and we both were and are. And to see that lack of foundation, I hope to God that that has changed over time. I see it some, and I see some changes with boards because I've been involved with several boards, been on boards, been president, whatever, over time. So I have seen some change. I hope that other boards who want you to be a title holder, ask them how they will be your foundation during this time that you're running and during your title year.
I might add something similar or related to what Boydie was just saying, in that you originally phrased this, Yolanda, as like, what should a participant think about, like for expectations around support. I think that it's important for people considering running to be really critical about what their needs are in very specific ways, because, and again, I want to be clear, I'm not like saying orgs don't have a responsibility to support the title holders, they do, but you have to know what your needs are in order for those needs to be met. And a community-led organization is not necessarily going to have every kind of resource available at all times. Case in point, how many contests and events and orgs have we seen that don't have crisis response, incident response, something along those lines? They aren't equipped for that. As Lamalani said in the opening section, there's this kind of mythos around losing your relationships during a title run. Most orgs don't have a relationship counselor on staff. And so if you are concerned about that, if you've got existing relationships and you're used to a particular kind of way of life and things, and you're evaluating a run for a title, be really critical with yourself around what you expect or anticipate your needs to be, so that you can ask for resources. Because otherwise, as I'm going to pull Brian into this just because we've worked on the same orgs and boards before, like we can't anticipate those kinds of needs as an organization necessarily. There are some easy ones like travel funds, but those specific needs to you and your circumstances, you have to self-advocate for so you can get those resources.
I also have a thought. I'm sorry.
Why?
Sorry, thank you for giving me safety eyes, Yolanda. Thank you. That like both of these people talked about in regards to like community care. Oh no. Oh no.
We can still hear you.
Okay, cool. So something that I was thinking about in regard to community care and the way that these folks were talking about it is like, one of the reasons why I ran for my title, to bring it back around, is the fact that I was like, we just need someone to cheer us on and show up, whatever that looks like. And like, there's no shame in asking for what you need. So also echoing like Ryan talking about like being able to communicate and knowing what your needs are is like super important. And then also Boydie also echoing Boydie's thoughts around like being like, we like really need our community to show up and show out for us is like really important. Outside of just looking beautiful in photos for us, but like knowing for what you need and how to advocate for that is like super.
Colin will be back. Just lost the internet connection. So anyone else want to share their thoughts on what other support you can need from that organization? Yep. So in all of that, in what support you need and how you can advocate for yourself and what you need to advocate for yourself, how has the whole experience of being a title holder, what have you learned from it? What came from that? Like at the end of it, what came into your life after? Could be what you learned about yourself, or like what you learned about your community, or vice versa.
I've said that one of the key things I learned was that I never needed a title to do anything. I've heard it sometimes as Dumbo's magic feather. It's like that kind of thing. You realize I'm like, oh, all I needed was an excuse to go and help my community or teach a class or be involved or actually, give a damn about people in the community and their well-being. And sometimes it's funny that that's all that push takes. And so I've tried to kind of tell people that, but still it's like, we do love a pageant. But I would say like the saddest thing is when someone does incredibly well at a contest and things like, oh, you'd be so good, but they just get edged out by another contestant. And then they think, oh, well, I guess I'm not worthy of doing this stuff. And they pull back and they don't do what they could have done. And to see it's like, no, you can still do it. It's Ryan knows this was a part of the Cincinnati thing we said. It's like, if you're going to get up on stage and say, hey, I want to help the community in XYZ ways, do it. Let us know. We don't care if you have a sash or not. We'll enable anybody who wants to help the community. We just can't send you to IML, or IMSL, whatever. So that was always my favorite was always like that. Didn't need it at all.
I literally learned that if other people can run a title and do it really poorly, I could do it a whole lot better. That's the honest truth. And then, like, for all the things that I've done, I'm a huge introvert. I'm incredibly introverted. I would be happy if you wrap me in a blanket and tuck me in a corner. And I'm going to share a really quick story of like why I got involved. This woman came up to me, and I'd been in the community way too long already. And she said, Jay, you should run. I'm like, no, I'm not that kind of human being because, I'm introverted. And she says, yeah, well, we only have one other woman. And it's this woman that I heard her name and I won't repeat it, but all I heard was, that one that messes up everybody else's chances of getting into the community and making it really hard. That's the only other woman that's running. You should run. And I ran only because I didn't want her to win. So, and then I got this regional title, and the producer was like, I'm not giving you any money. I'm like, what do you mean? Oh, you can't win. I'm not giving you any. And I contacted, because Facebook was just blowing up at that time, everybody I knew, held all kinds of like little things, was pulling out 10 little dollar bills and $10 bills, saved up $1,500 and traveled by train because I couldn't afford a plane to my international contest. When I got to my international contest, I was supposed to have a prize package there. And because I wasn't supposed to be there, my producer put no effort into it. And some of the prize package that was there was incredibly racist and very embarrassing for me to be up on stage, but I was going to do the thing. Through all that, all I needed to do for my community and all that I can do for my community is make space for other people to go on and do great things. That's all that title did for me, was give people in my area that I thought were just lovely and heartwarming, and they just needed to meet a couple more people. I could do that for them. I could do that. So I don't think everybody has to be perfect, and I don't think everybody has to have the best scene or everything else. If you're you, and you have a heart and a drive and a feel for your community, no matter how you express it, there's a space for you, and you can make space for other people. ADHD, I'm done.
Cheers to that. And love the power of petty. And from the comments, everybody else does too. For me, like lessons learned, I kind of listed down some things. Greater self-knowledge. I think that when you do something that stretches you to, go beyond, your current capacity to do new things, try new things, maybe travel to places you haven't, talk to people you haven't talked to. You learn a lot about yourself, about your support system. And I sure learned a lot through my 2 titles. Definitely learned that if I wanted it done better, I could do it myself, which is not always wise, but still fun. You learn the power of a platform, and that title holders don't need to comment on everything, and it's not always appropriate. Your voice isn't always the voice that needs to be heard just because you have certain title. Sometimes amplifying somebody else's voice is more important or more useful. And what you do and don't like, I think, comes pretty quickly. I think for my first title, I traveled 50 weekends out of the year, and I don't like to travel that much, but I do love travel. And I found out that even though I'm super social, I love the quiet moments. I love, the Thursday before the weekend when I get into, Cleveland and I'm in somebody's house and we're sitting with pajamas eating cereal. That actually is my favorite part of the contest weekend, even though I was there for a whole weekend, So you learn more about yourself and about power and responsibility, and, Spider-Man with great power comes great responsibility.
Anyone?
I think one of the things that I learned through both titles is that I had the idea in my mind that as a trained social worker, that, maybe I had some ideas about relationships and intimacy and things like that I could offer to the community. And what I found is that every single time I was part of presenting whatever I presented, whether it was punching, kicking, and slapping, or intimacy in an MS relationship, or, all the things that we study and we learn so that we can put forth a little bit of ourselves. I found that I learned way more than I ever taught anything. And to be open to that, and embrace that, and then to share those things so that it's not just my voice talking about my knowledge, but it's my experience as informed by the people that I attempted to teach something who taught me. And so it's letting go of ego. And, title holding sometimes is about ego. What I found, it was about letting go of ego and embracing people different than myself. Going to Idaho and talking to people was like, I've never been to Idaho. I'm not going there. Those people will kill my queer half-breed ass. I'm like, I'm gonna die. And they were different than me, but I learned a lot. And being able to impart that knowledge, it has been life-changing for me.
Anyone?
My check. I'm sorry for the lack of video. Can y'all hear me?
We can hear you.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm sorry that my video is being a butt. But I'm gathering that the question is like, what has like title holding meant to me, or what is it like? And what is it like? Less like what does it mean to me? Because we already talked about that. But my thought is like title holding is so not what you think it's gonna be. It's just so not. And also like is in a very weird way. Because I find myself sitting at the bottom of the Bootblack. Sorry, it's Pisces season and my feelings is very Pisces right now. But I'm just like, when I got my title in October of 2019, right before COVID hit, I was like, cool, I'm gonna work all winter. I'm gonna and like save up my vacation hours. I'm gonna be like professionally homosexual in a leather faggy kind of way on the weekends come April, May, and June during quote unquote leather season. And I'm gonna get paid for it. It's gonna be me. I can do it. And then COVID happened, and COVID was like, never again are we meeting in public. And so for me personally, as someone who like earned my title right before COVID happened, I had to reckon with myself in a very deep and meaningful and beautiful and sometimes earth-shattering way, depending on the day and how I felt about it, that how you think you have this idea of how you think it's gonna go, but like life happens. Not to sound jaded, it doesn't happen because I've like ventured out since then because we're less of a pandemic and more of an endemic. Ew. I'm not saying that's any better. I'm just saying that that's where we're at right now. Yeah, and so just like yes. That's I think my thoughts. Sorry.
Anyone else want to share what they've learned from this experience? Ryan?
Sure. I think that what I would add is just to be prepared for rude awakenings. You're gonna either find you've learned something completely and unexpectedly new about yourself or about your community, sometimes pleasantly and sometimes otherwise. Sometimes you'll find that you've completely galvanized around something about yourself. So like for me, I knew that I was not the stand on a stage MC type before I ever went into this shindig, and never expected to do that during my year. And thank goodness no one asked me. And that was fully reinforced by spending that much time in public spaces and in the public eye. What I do enjoy is teaching classes and connecting with folks in more intimate and more kind of small group kinds of ways. And that was really reinforced. And I had my own sets of, again, rude awakenings that happened along the way to really, nail that point home. And as Colin just said, it is never what you expect it to be. I think if someone comes out of the year and goes, yeah, this is exactly what I expected, then something went horribly wrong. Or they're sociopathic, because there's no way you can anticipate what this is going to be like in the best of times. And just be prepared for a lot of rude awakenings as you go through the year. And I think that there's also the giant pink tutued elephant in the room of it's easy for title holders to get jaded once they've gotten out of the public eye and handed off to the next person. And that's okay. You may be, you might not be. Whatever your takeaway is at the end of that year, it might take you a day to recover and jump back into the pool. It might take you years. One of my close friends only just recently got back on the Bootblack stand after she stepped down from her title around the same time as me. So yeah, Wuzzy Acres will be there for sure whenever it's ready for you. And you'll have a plot, but you can leave, you can go vacation elsewhere. And just be prepared for that emotional roller coaster. You won't know what it's like. You won't know which corkscrew's coming when, but you will have one. And so back to the earlier points, like having a support network and having the right resources so that you can adapt as you go through that roller coaster ride is really important.
Yeah. Carla, you want to share?
I don't know. I think that a lot of my title year was what I expected. I expected to go do a lot of events and raise funds for different things and all of that. And honestly, I don't think the things that I learned over my title year are not positive. I look at my title year as a positive experience. I would do it again, but I learned things about my community and about people in my community that, quite frankly, I wish I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I've been sitting here listening to everybody talk about what they learned and going, I should just keep those teeth closed, because I can't really, that portion of the title experience was not pleasant. So yeah,
But it's
that's what I
valid.
learned.
It is a valid experience.
Yeah.
And something to keep in mind as people going through things, through this title experience, not just running, but afterwards, there are some things that you're going to learn that aren't pretty.
Yeah.
So
I think
potentially.
there's a bit of confusion a lot of times with title holders, that by design, by the fact that they have a title holder, that they're a natural leader in their community. I don't know where that theory came up from, but that is some not necessarily true.
Mm-mm. One of the things to me I think is really important along these lines is that knowing that previous title holders, we are a resource to you. You can reach out to us. Most of us can and will help you as much as we can. You know, we may not know everything. We may know one or two things, maybe, you know, but I'll show up at your event if you want me to be there. You know, I'll take tickets at the door or some other whatever. And I think sometimes it's like, well, the Wuzzies, they've done their thing, they're done, and you know, that was then, this is now kind of thing. And I think that that is a serious misgiving, because lots of us are still out here doing a bunch of shit. And we're willing to, you know what, I'll bring my 10 friends with me to your event if you want us to be there. You know, so look to the previous title holders as a resource, not just as a Wuzzy, nothing, you know, good for nothing, whatever. And yeah, Jay just said something about, you know, vet them, because not all of them do you want to get help from or want to get feedback from or whatever. You know, so find good matches for you, the work you're doing, so that you get the right fit.
Absolutely. So along those lines, is there any other things that you would recommend that for this, our purposes, obviously this is the Washington State Leather Organization. We have a Washington State title. So if you're having a Washington State title and you're a title holder for the state, one question is, how do you network through your title year in the state or region outside outside of the big city, outside of wherever you live specifically, and open the door beyond that if your title is for the state or for the region? Or
Carla, woo, did an excellent job of this. So, you know, if anybody can answer that.
I'll just say that do whatever with good intention. Like, so much of my title year, especially when I first got it, like my first 6 months, I was a fucking train wreck. But I feel like the first 6 months of anything is always a train wreck, and then you figure out what you're doing. You're kind of like, okay, like I got this for the next like however long. But like, unless it's really offensive, and I'm not going to govern what's offensive for you, I trust you all in this beautiful moment that we are creating together to know what's not and what is acceptable. but do whatever you can do and show up however you can. And I'm not gonna say in most settings you'll be fine. I'm not gonna say that, but like, just do what you can do your best, and like you will be fine. And also be willing to take accountability when you mess up too.
Go ahead, Carla.
So I think I used several different strategies to do this, but I think one of them that was really helpful for me was the pride events, because even the tiniest of the communities here in Washington have a pride event. I think, you know, there was one weekend I did 3 different prides in a weekend. And so that allowed me to, you know, go to Bellingham and Olympia and Eastern Washington, couple different places. And so I found that right off the bat at the start of my title year, going to those pride events, as many and as far flung as I could, got me contacts in places that I could go back to.
Mm-hmm.
Second one was that my Sash husband was actually from Eastern Washington. So it gave us a little bit of a leg up on what events were there. And then I used the contacts that Bryn, who was the Bootblack the year before me, had made in different parts of the state, and things that we did with her. We made sure to contact them and say, hey, would you like to have us back? So I think that those are some good strategies for how to spread yourself around your state or your region.
Just to toot the Carla horn a little bit more, you also used connections with social clubs like Seattle Men in Leather, Seattle Women in Leather, Girls of Leather, Boys of Leather, CPA. I think there was also, was there a rubber group, or was it? But you went to like so many other groups.
I went to everything, and that's something that I would caution potential title holders of, that you really need to learn how to do, is to not overextend yourself.
Yeah.
And in fact, I still haven't learned that, because, you know, I just got back from a stressful trip for family reasons, and had a medical procedure yesterday, and I'm not recovered. So like that's by far the biggest thing that I can, like, you know, suggest, is learn how to do all the things that you want to do and make it your own, but not overextend.
Absolutely.
I have an easy one. Up here in Canada, we always find that the Americans have way more resources than us, way more connections, way more clubs, way more everything. So to go really super basic, if you have an event in your town, being that human for the year that could hook another sister up with another person that's just like them makes you the most popular person on the circuit. People will come to you to get matched up with people to save a little bit of money here and there.
Yep. Yep.
Anyone else have ideas? Or we can go to, so we have some questions in the chat that we can go to. Yeah, all right, perfect. So one of the questions that came up in the chat is, how would you support someone not in the binary as a title holder under the trans umbrella while you have a binary title? So this year is on Washington State's first MX title. And so as other title holders, how do you support that title holder?
I'm sorry, Carissa. Okay. I actually not the next year, but the year after, I supported and encouraged a trans woman to run for Washington State. And although, and I identify as non-binary. So, but trying to do that within the Ms. Leather and she, her, and all that, that was, ooh. So for me, the biggest thing that I would do for another non-binary person, if they're running for a Ms. or a Mr., is how can I support you in advocating for what it is that makes you feel good about yourself? You know, how can I help you to tell whomever that you use they, them pronouns and that calling them she makes them feel uncomfortable or less than? You know, and I would look to that person. What is it that you feel that I might be able to do to support you as another non-binary person?
Yeah, and I was just going to throw it out there. So there's a couple different ways. So both of my titles were not gendered titles, and Cincinnati actually under Bolt's leadership actually changed their title to just be Cincinnati Leather, and you picked the honorific. Was that it, or?
Yes, we have the distinction. There have been other like inclusive titles before. We're the first specific men's title that went completely gender open. We just dropped the honorific entirely. And then every title holder really got to pick how they wanted to be. The sash just removed the honorific. We thought about trying to do a Velcro patch, but it was too much. And the idea being is like, okay, like our current one is a Vince, the Mr. Cincinnati. The person before that was a Miss. And we just sort of like say it's like, this is the current Miss Cincinnati Leather. This is like the one title holder we have. We approached it from the idea that anybody from any part of the community should be able to represent all of the community if they want to do that. I think that might be a high expectation to put on everybody. I think that some people have handled it better than others, but some have really risen to it. And we, one of our previous non-binary title holders, with them started one of our quarterly, I believe, events, which we called Fetish, as an acronym for Femme, NB, Trans, Intersex, and Sapphic, and then there's the H. We couldn't find something for H. But it meant to be a night that centers non-cis male people. But even that, like, became the challenge to say, like, okay, well, it's still, as somebody put it once, like, well, if I'm a non-binary, I don't necessarily want to be there for the women's happy hour kind of thing. Like, trying to find the way to say, it's like, okay, how do we honor who you are without defining you by who you're not? That got me. That's a little diversion, but yeah, it's I think really doing that. And I'll kind of spin off and say, it's like, I think anyone who produces events, who does these kind of things, who runs a contest, like, make sure your MCs, your judges, your volunteers understand proper pronoun usage. Don't make sure it is written in the script, that it is clear to everyone, so they don't mistakenly just knee-jerk to gender presentation as the pronoun, and like make sure they get it right and enforce it. Like, make sure it's like educate them and hold them accountable when they don't get it right. It's a big challenge, but it's also it's not as big. Actually, I'm going to take that back. It is not a big challenge. It's a new challenge, and I think that, like, with a little education, most people can get it. But it's really a lot of people are still today new to it, and I think that just that and being able to say, it's like, okay, how about you just interact with the non-binary person? I think you'll get it really fast once you actually have some exposure to this other human being.
Well, and just like the Mr. titles have often worked to pull up the Ms. title holders and say, like, oh, I'm invited to an event, so is my title spouse. So if you're Mr. and Miss Washington Leather, make sure the mix gets an invite too. Like it's, just advocating for the other title partner is an easy way as a binary title holder to be that ally, advocate, accomplice.
One other circumstance that I would just kind of expose folks to is the way that IMSL Bootblack works. They keep a Ms. title, but they have publicized for a couple of years now that anybody of any gender identity can run for that title as long as they are comfortable representing, working with, engaging with the women's community. And so for me, not that my boy was anticipating running for one of their titles, but it was a relevant lens to think about it. One of my boys is non-binary and was considering running for a gendered title. And so the conversation was, are you comfortable navigating, engaging with, representing, participating in generally men's spaces, as long as that's okay for you, and as long as that jives with that title organization, then go for it. But that goes back to that earlier point from I think the beginning of the panel about understanding the orgs you're getting involved with, understanding the title and its mission and its goals, and is that copacetic with you and your values. And so again, IMSL Bootblack is a great example for a lot of folks around maintaining a gendered title, quote unquote, but really allowing almost anybody to participate in it, as long as they understand kind of what the guardrails around things are.
Another question. Thank you for taking time to answer that. Dealing with title holder burnout, recommendations on how to avoid it in the first place, and then if not, how to cope with it if you've had it. And if you're someone that are chronically ill, disabled, or have other situations that may make that burnout harder or more, or even if people that have family that other family requirements, that burnout is real. So, question.
I was raising, my daughter was 14 when I ran. And one statement on that is that I've always said family is first, and that what I do in the leather community is open for discussion. How I do it in the bedroom is not open for discussion with my daughter, period. And that's what kind of kept me a bit sane in all the craziness that happens when you get a title. No matter what anybody says, you get the title, there's a great high for about 10 days and crash real hard because nobody remembers your name. And then you get to work. And when they say get to work and you're sitting there going, what does that mean? It means, what can you do? Just what can you do? You're not going to be able to do it all. You can't fix it all. You can't maintain it all, but you can certainly get enough minions to help get it started. So whatever that means, or however you're going to do it, it's going to be on your life, on your timeline, on your schedule. I know people do, like, they go now, man. They're like Carissa, I hope I'm saying it right. It's like freaking 50 weekends. Wow. Like, I did not do that. 2 a month, maybe my max, probably my maximum. But I've had people ask me, can you stay for the entire weekend? Can you also do a workshop and do this thing and do that thing? And it's like, I don't think you realize I have a full-time job, a daughter that's had to have a report in 2 weeks ago, and I still haven't made it home, and I don't know how I'm going to get there. So if you can spell out your needs and know what your needs are and what you want, it's going to go real smooth, or smoother. Let's go with smoother.
And to throw it in there, that 50 weekends cost me. I, ever since my title years, actually have dealt with declining physical health and physical ability. I was in a pretty horrific car accident my title year, and that has caused permanent injury to like my back and my knees. And so I have used mobility devices at pretty much every major event since. Any big hotel events, IMSL 2017, I zipped around on a scooter. And when I had the ability to, which is a financial privilege, I would stay with people so that I was staying in a house that maybe had more resources or accommodations to where I could fly in early. I could let my body rest, do the thing, rest and fly out, or, you know, with travel or working remote. But I definitely am still paying for the consequences of holding 2 titles at the same time and traveling way too much. So I would not recommend it. Don't overexert yourself.
Um,
Yes.
when I held
everything-
my title, I was less disabled and chronically ill than I am now. I have a hard time with this because events and organizations and, you know, our local bars and everything always talk about accessibility, and it's not something that I found is actually a real thing. Like you have interpreters and things like that. Yes, that makes that accessible to some people. And that's great. It's a start, but I found it was a real problem when people asked me to come to their event and do their thing. And I would say, okay, but I need, you know, this, that, the other. I can't lift things. I can't be on my feet for very, very long. I'm gonna need breaks. And had a couple of events say straight out to me, we don't have anything that you can do. Like we don't have anything that is within your abilities. And I don't necessarily think that even running for the titles, the way that they are structured, is accessible to someone who is chronically ill or disabled. Because once you have that title, you can decide for yourself how much physical labor, how much emotional labor you can put it into any one event, and what accommodations you're going to need to make it through that and to make it worthwhile for you and for the other people who are attending, and for the producer of that event. But while you're running, it's kind of needlessly overextended. You know, there's a way that we could structure these things that would not kill our participants. And I see very little willingness to change things, because that's all the way it's always been done. And we need to make sure that people can hang and that they can do this thing. And I don't think that that's a great perspective. So it's very hard to do this thing that is title holding as a disabled or chronically ill person. Not that it can't be done, but it's a lot of work for you.
I would just like to say that how I dealt with burnout is that I was fortunate enough to have a community who was down to give me massages and let me be a mess and do some body work for me. And I know that that's not necessarily something that a lot of people have the ability to do. And I want to be very clear that if I did not have the community that I have behind me fighting for me every step of the way, that I would not be able to do what I do. And so I will say that, touching on a subject that we talked about earlier, community really helps with burnout. I will also say that if you were able to identify what your self-care strategies are, and then also advocating for people, that's also important. And also, like, when you are experiencing burnout and because whenever I feel really overwhelmed by my title or whatever, what I think about is something that I saw in my first event as a title holder, trademark officially, was Leather Rain 2019. And I saw this really beautiful person who has played with another person in a dungeon before, not be able to go as hard as they normally did for that person. And I watched their negotiation during their cooldown. And something that the person who was like topping the other person asked that person was, did you, after that person apologized for not being able to go as hard for that person, their top was like, did you do your best for me tonight? And do you feel or do you feel proud of the work that you gave me tonight? And when I think about burnout, the person who asked their bottom, that is an elder who I really love and respect and care a lot about. Whenever I think about burnout in regard to like maybe not showing up my best because I'm too nervous or whatever's getting me down and affecting me showing up, nerves, in a way that's like different than I normally do. I think of like, I hear that person's voice in my head, because it was just such a very like, we're in dungeons all the time, shit gets heavy, whatever. But in that moment, the way that person asked their bottom, did you do your best for me tonight? And there was no other expectation in that moment. In answering that question honestly, like, that's what I think about when I think about burnout. To bring it back around, it's like, one, did I get a photo because social media has killed us all? Two, did I do the thing, whatever that meant for me? Yes. Three, did I do my best tonight? And yes, okay. That's all I could ask for, is to like go out and do my best, throw on whatever outfit I have that makes me feel the best at the time, and then like do it. So that's what I think about when I feel guilty about like burnout, is like, did I do my best? And also, baths are important, and salts of different kinds are important, and leaning on my friends and my care team is important. And trusting my community to hold me when I need them most is important.
So it's interesting because, and partly this is me, I'm a disabled veteran. When we ran for international, I had just had a third cornea replacement in the same eye. But prior to that, when I ran for Washington State, I'm hard of hearing and I have PTSD. Those are two invisible disabilities. And our community, it seems, still forces people who have disabilities to be the ones who do the work. to say, you know, I need this, I need that, I need this, and to be accommodating if they can't provide it. And I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. Because if you want folks who come to your event who are disabled, especially if you want them to present or you want them to run for a title or whatever, it is asking the questions of, you know, do you have, you know, any needs, or is there any way that we can support you in doing X, so that you allow the person, one, to out themselves if they choose to about a disability or not, because all of us want to walk down, you know, walk around the whole other community. Oh, I have PTSD due to military sexual assault. You know, really? I don't want to be telling that to everybody. I don't want to be telling everybody that certain people scare me because of my past history, you know, but that may or may not impact me. So I need to know what it is that I need and advocate for myself, yes. But I also need to know that if I say to you, I need to be able to sit with my back against the wall, then you don't question me about why I'm saying that, or, you know, act like it's a burden to you that I'm asking for that particular thing, whatever that particular thing is. That shouldn't make a difference. If someone says to you they need something, take it at face value and leave the rest of that shit alone. Let them decide, and let me decide as a disabled person what I'm willing to disclose to you and why.
Yeah.
You know, and not have it be the burden, you know, and the work, the toll on me to have to always be saying, oh, yeah, well, I'm the one that's hard of hearing. And yes, I need an interpreter. And yeah, I know there's only me in the class, but I still need somebody there. Or, you know, just because it's just me doesn't mean I don't still need X. And that's not valuable, and that I am still a valuable contributing member of this effing community, regardless of what my physical abilities or my emotional abilities are. I have something to offer. And when I rode around on a knee scooter for months at a time because of 2 different Achilles surgeries, you could bet your ass there was a whole lot I couldn't do, but there was a hell of a lot I could do, you know. And if I say to you, I need floors that have the same level because I can't see the difference, you know, take me at face value. I shouldn't have to tell you I've had 6 cornea replacements. You know, so to me, that's the twofold piece of it, is being willing to ask for what you need, and for them to be willing to take it at face value and provide it if they can, and if not, say why they can't, and what you two can come up with together to get the needs met.
Yeah, as a younger disabled person coming into certain leather communities, I'm always very thankful for the disabled leather elders that came before me at events that advocated for certain accessibility, because when I went to my very first IMSL, there was an accessibility coordinator that already existed. You know, when I went to my very first Washington State Leather Contest, there was an ASL interpreter already. You know, at certain events, there have been like an accessibility form that you fill out as a part of registration because somebody advocated for that at that event. So I am, you know, grateful to the people who have spoken up and asked for their needs to be met so that it wasn't as difficult for me to have my needs met. And, you know, if everybody just kind of has that pass it on mentality, that would be great. And some events do, like I listed, some events do a great job of asking, hey, is there anything we can provide that would make your event more enjoyable? And some of them don't, or actively are like, too bad. And, you know, so choosing your events, vetting your events is just as important in title holding.
Yeah.
Can I just bounce off of that one just a little bit? I know you all noticed that I'm a Black woman living here in Canada. The United States scares the Jesus out of me, okay? And when I was doing my travels, I can't tell you how many people were advising me where to go who were not of my color, who were not of my gender. So I learned this to flip the switch just a little bit, if this helps anybody, is like, instead of just asking who is the accessibility coordinator, ask your accessibility coordinator qualifications are. Because it's everything to me. I can't, I went to Atlanta. Some very nice Black person explained to me that there were places I should never, ever go. But the people who invited me there did not say anything about that. That's scary. You get me? You know what I'm saying? Just give them a little bit of a flip on that, whoever invites you, and just ask them, how are they the accessibility coordinator? And most likely you're going to get the little tiny resume of who they are. They're this person, that person, they got this picture, and you're like, okay, at least I know how I'm gonna to value their opinion, because some places are just not cool.
Thank you for sharing. It's all so valid. So we're coming to the last bit of time here. Does anyone else have anything that they want to share? Any questions that haven't been answered that from our audience that want to be asked at this point? You're welcome to unmute yourself and ask if you have a question burning.
There was a question earlier in the chat asked by someone who wanted to know about what the possibilities of moving on from the Washington State title were.
Okay. Yes. Sorry, let me go back. Moving on from the Washington State title holder to international title holder titles. If there are a title that they want to run for, and Washington State does encourage you to run for whatever title you're eligible to on an international level. If you're able to, based on that that international title's responsibility. I know there was questions about as far as the Olympus title. Shakira, with the Olympics title, what did you have to have a particular title beforehand?
When it comes, from everything that I know about Olympus, and I don't know everything, okay, you run for a regional Olympus title, and then you go to international. There are exceptions. There are some big exceptions. For example, there is no Olympus around your area, that kind of thing.
Right. Okay. And as far as Washington State, there's definitely support for running for whatever a next level title you're interested in, that's available to you. Question, what events that you are title holders for? What are your events that you are title holders for, and when do they happen? Oh, so Carissa, international puppy trainer, when's the weekend?
The weekend is this upcoming March 31st through April 2nd in Chicago, Illinois. All venues are ADA accessible, and the only charge for the entire weekend is a $20 for the main contest. So trying to make it as feasible as possible. Come on out, see some puppies and trainers.
Yeah.
Very glad that's coming back.
Thanks. We've been been working hard since November of 2021 to make it happen.
And anyone else involved in any other titles that are coming up?
Yes, I want to say
Yes.
that my steptown weekend is the weekend of October 1st. I want to say it's like September 30th to like October 2nd. Yeah. And it's gonna be in person. It's gonna be in person. So you should come camp in the woods and do whatever.
Yes. So thank you all for joining us. The Washington State contest is the weekend of March 24th is the meet and greet, 25th is the contest, 26th is the awards brunch. The contestant applications, if you're going to mail them, are due next Wednesday, the 15th. If you're going to drop them off in person, they can be dropped off at the at Doghouse Leather by the 17th. We pushed that date back from the week of the contest in part to help with accessibility and the planning so that we have time to touch base with contestants beforehand to make sure that we can get them all the information they need with a little more time, as well as do some planning along that.
Will you repeat that,
for those.
Yolanda? I'm sorry, it did not.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Will you repeat that or message me that information? Because it did
Abs-
not. Okay, cool.
Absolutely. I will send that information to you. Yes, so the 15th, 17th is the application. And so if you have any questions, please reach out, send an email. You can send an email to info@wslo.info, and we are happy to answer any questions about the contest or anything else that you may need along the way. Thank you so much all for coming. I'm so happy that we were able to get all of you together from so many variety of experiences. Thank you all. I appreciate you so much. Our next community meeting is going to be in April following the contest. And a big part of that is how we're going to support our title holders. So, and as an organization and moving forward. So I look forward to having new title holders to discuss how we do that better with. So
Awesome.
I will talk to you all later. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Miss Yolanda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Night.
Good night.